Don't compare yourself with other people, compare yourself with who you were yesterday. The truth is something that burns. It burns off deadwood. And people don't like having the deadwood burnt off, often because they're 95% deadwood. Accept the terrible responsibility of life with eyes wide open. I don't tell people, you're okay the way that you are. That's not the right story. The right story is, you're way less than you could be. Don't lie about anything, ever. Lying leads to hell. It is more difficult to rule yourself than to rule a city. There's a personality trait known as agreeableness. Agreeable people are compassionate and polite. And agreeable people get paid less than disagreeable people for the same job. Women are more agreeable than men. Free speech is not just another value. It's the foundation of Western civilization. If you don't stand your ground, then all that happens is people push you backwards. Adopt responsibility for your own well-being, try to put your family together, try to serve your community, try to seek for eternal truth. That's the sort of thing that can ground you in your life, enough so that you can withstand the difficulty of life. It's in responsibility that most people find the meaning that sustains them through life. It's not in happiness. It's not in impulsive pleasure. No one gets away with anything, ever, so take responsibility for your own life. Part of the core information that I've been purveying is that identity politics is a sick game. You don't play racial, ethnic, and gender identity games. The left plays them on behalf of the oppressed, let's say, and the right tends to play them on behalf of nationalism and ethnic pride. I think they're equally dangerous. It's very hard to find your own words, and you don't actually exist until you have your own words. The people who hold that our culture is an oppressive patriarchy, they don't want to admit that the current hierarchy might be predicated on competence. You may say, well, dragons don't exist. It's like, yes they do, the category predator and the category dragon are the same category. It absolutely exists. It's a superordinate category. It exists absolutely more than anything else. In fact, it really exists. Don't be dependent. At all. Ever. Period. When you start to realize how much of what you've constructed of yourself is based on deception and lies, that is a horrifying realization. The connection between psychology, mythology, and literature is as important as the connection between psychology and biology and the hard sciences. The idea that women were oppressed throughout history is an appalling theory. Women deeply want men who are competent and powerful. And I don't mean power in that they can exert tyrannical control over others. That's not power. That's just corruption. Power is competence. I've studied authoritarianism for a very long time, for 40 years, and they're started by people's attempts to control the ideological and linguistic territory. Life is tragic. You are tiny and flawed and ignorant and weak, and everything else is huge, complex, and overwhelming. To me, ideology is corrupt, it's a parasite on religious structures. To be an ideologue is to have all of the terrible things that are associated with religious certainty and none of the utility. If you're an ideologue, you believe everything that you think. If you're religious, there's a mystery left there. Become aware of your own insufficiency. Happiness is a pointless goal. Music has an intrinsic meaning, which has always been mysterious to me. It makes sense that a witch lives in a swamp. Self-love is the only antidote to the chaos of existence. And if you don't love and care for yourself and your own needs, you will cause unnecessary suffering both for yourself and others. You can't go backward in life. As pessimistic as I am about the nature of human beings and our capacity for atrocity and malevolence and betrayal and laziness and inertia, and all those things, I think we can transcend all that and set things straight. Men and women aren't the same. And they won't be the same. That doesn't mean that they can't be treated fairly. Part of the reason there's an injunction to the truth, for example, is that if you're in a circumstance of extreme uncertainty, your best weapon, let's say, or your best tool or your best defense is the truth, because it keeps things simpler. We have to rediscover the eternal values and then live them out. There were some great clinicians in the 20th century, great men. Freud was a genius, Jung was a genius, Carl Rogers was a genius. There's a half-dozen psychologists of the 1950s and humanists of the 1960s.